Brought to you by BedroomBattlefields.com, this is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Dan. How are you doing this evening?
I'm very well, thank you. I've just finished work, so I'm all excited and ready to go on this podcasting journey you're about to lead me on.
Well, you've talked it up now. I better deliver. Well,
Yeah.
You're here to deliver. I just need to ask some questions. I'll give you a bit of background, Dan. I was at Tabletop Scotland last weekend, and I've got a 2-year-old daughter, so I've been very keen to find a game that I could get her into sooner rather than later. And I've been on my Google machine looking for like dungeon crawlers for kids and stuff like that. So I obviously didn't do a great job, but walked into Tabletop Scotland and there's this brilliant looking wee game called CoraQuest. So got talking to your man at the stand, bought a copy, went home, read the rules and that, and I'm really enamoured with it. So I am fortunate now that you've agreed to come on the show and give us a bit of background behind it. So
well, that's all right. Thank you. Thank you for buying it, and thank you for being more. Thank you for being enamoured with it. That's nice to hear.
So I know you're one half of the team, aren't you? So it's your daughter Cora that's your co-conspirator here, isn't it?
Yeah. Shall I just launch? Do you want me to just launch into it?
Definitely. Yeah, let's get a bit of background. Yeah.
So it all kind of started in the COVID lockdown, right kind of at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, where schools were all on the kind of back foot. So they were meant to be doing, homeschooling and stuff, but the stuff they were sending through was quite uninspiring. It was kind of research the Romans on the internet type stuff, and we were both getting quite bored of doing that, really. So just on myself and my daughter, Cora, she was 8 at the time. We've been into board gaming for a long time. It's been quite a big part of our lives, really, and certainly a big part of the relationship we have with each other. And so I kind of just on this kind of spur of the moment said, "Did you fancy designing a board game?" And she was well up for it. That and so we just started putting something together for us. And I asked her what she wanted to do. And we'd recently been playing quite a lot of Zombicide and quite a lot of Funkoverse. I don't know if you've ever played the Funkoverse kind of skirmish game. And so she wanted to do something that was a bit like that, but she also wanted to do something that because previously she'd sat in, sneakily stuck downstairs while my friends and I were playing D&D and all that kind of thing. So she wanted to do something a bit like that as well, where we can do adventures and things like that. And as you know from the Google searching you've probably done, there's actually there's a lot of board games for kids and families which are more kind of Euro game focused, more kind of cerebral almost. But there's not a lot of narrative driven stories, not a lot of dungeon crawlers. Basically, there are some. There's Karak, who's very popular. There's Mice and Mystics, which is also very popular, but not that many. And so she wanted to design that. So we set off and basically she managed most of the mechanics, if I'm absolutely honest. And we put together this game. It was only ever meant to be played on our kitchen table, and it was a kind of amalgamation of Zombicide and Funkoverse and various other things and bits and bobs from all over the place. And kind of boiled down to be easy to play because we wanted to play it. And then my friend Gary, I mentioned this on a Facebook group that I run. And my friend Gary, who's a very talented artist, he, for a joke, kind of mocked up a box cover saying, "Coming soon to Kickstarter, CoraQuest," riffing on the name of Hero Quest and things. And when you have one of those ideas and you go, "Oh." It never even occurred to me, but I thought, we could develop this and we could do it. And I asked Gary if he was, Gary said, "Well, no, I'll be up for developing it, and I'll be up for doing the art and things," because Gary's a fantastic artist. And so we originally started kind of developing the game that Cora and I come up together, and we started refining it a little bit, and then we put it out as a print and play initially, and a few of my friends and various people played the print and play, and then they gave feedback, and that enabled us to kind of refine it even more and make it even more kid friendly and take off all the rough edges and things like that. Until we got a game where we thought, there's a gap in the market for this kind of stuff, and should we just do it? And so we put together a Kickstarter, and I got Mark Cook involved, which is probably the chap you talked to over at Tabletop Scotland, who now runs Bright Eye Games, but at the time didn't. But he was working for another board game company, and he agreed on his spare time to help us out with the kind of logistics of how do you get things manufactured and all that. Because me and Gary got no idea, and Cora's got no idea as well. So it kind of snowballed from there. Really, we took it to Kickstarter, and we were hoping to kind of sell 500 copies in order we could get it made. This passion project and things. And we ended up selling. I think it was over 6,000. I think in the end. And me and Cora ended up on BBC Breakfast TV and all sorts of stuff. It was quite a whirlwind, really. And then we've got this game, and it's fantastic because it's something that started on our kitchen table as just something fun and something innocent, and nothing kind of, there was no kind of cynicism behind it. There was no kind of, let's make a game and market it. And then it just kind of kept progressing and progressing and progressing until suddenly I find myself as a published board game designer. And even more excitingly, my daughter finds herself as a published board game designer and a published board game artist, because the other thing we did, because it all kind of grew up quite organically, is we got people to send in the pictures that their kids have drawn of various monsters and things like that. And what Gary does is he traces over those on a kind of an iPad basically, but on a drawing app, and then kind of colours them in and makes kind of refines them. So, I mean, you'll have seen the art there. It's all done by kids, but it's also really good. Kids it's fine quality, but it's just kind of bumped up a little bit by Gary's colouring in, and it's a unique art style. I think it's not something I've seen anywhere else, and it really adds to the kind of punk rock. Let's make a board game. Let's do something. Let's anyone can do this kind of stuff type aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a real flavour to it. The whole package. It's just got a very distinctive sort of look and feel about it, doesn't it? And it's it's nuts that you're saying like that you hadn't made a game before, because I pre-assumed, I didn't really look too much into this. I just thought maybe that was something that you were involved in anyway. So, it seemed like a natural thing to do. But the fact that it's kind of been so organic is, it's all the more impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been. It was the defining kind of thing of lockdown for me and Cora, and the stories. It's a dungeon crawler, but it's got quite a strong narrative throughout it. There's not campaigns, because I don't know about you, but I play campaign games, and you play the first game, and then you don't play it for a while, so you play the first game again, and you don't play it. You know what I mean? It takes. Mm-hmm. I like having it more modular than that, so you can jump in at any point during that quest book or whatever. And the stories in the campaign, the stories in the quests are all stories that kind of came from a place where I used to tell these to Cora's my youngest child. She's now 11, but I've also got a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. So these are stories that I used to tell them when they were 2 and 3, and when we went on walks, I used to tell them stories about Wizard Pebble Dash and his spoon collecting and all that kind of stuff. So it's all kind of it kind of felt like a lot of things have come together to make this, and it's been really exciting. But yeah, no, I'd never designed a board game or anything really before. Done a bit of writing and things, but not that. But I don't think that matters. I think anyone can do it, and this shows it. And to be honestly, Cora did the majority of the. I'd even say Cora did certainly the mechanics of the game. She was the designer of the mechanics of the game, with a bit of kind of help from me saying, well, have you thought about doing this and that? But it was more kind of a mentor rather than a co-designer. And then I'm always almost the developer of the game. So I did a lot of the play testing, because I tell you what, that's a process and a half. Playing one way of ruining Cora's excitement about the game would be making her play it through 100 times. You know what I mean? She did a fair share of play testing, but I did most of it, and then that helped me just kind of smooth off some of the rough edges and introduce some mechanics that I'm quite proud of and things like that. So yeah.
Cool. I want to sort of dig into the game itself and a couple of wee things I want to ask you about. But first, just curious to learn a bit about your background in terms of playing games. You know, what games did you grow up playing, and what sort of stuff has that evolved into in recent years?
Well, I mean, growing up, my favourite game was Survive Escape from Atlantis. Do you remember that one with the plastic island you got to escape from and things like that? I also played a lot of Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs. I was playing a lot of games as a kid, and also I used to make up games for my brother and sister to play as well. So kind of not necessarily board games, but kind of variations of Tig and hide and seek and all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of messing with board game designs from an early age, I suppose. And then I got into Warhammer and Necromunda and this is in the old days. I'm an old man, by the way. So you can't see me, but I am. I'm a greybeard. So this was kind of first.
This is an old man's podcast. It's fine.
That's fine. Yeah. So this was kind of Blood Bowl and the first edition of Necromunda and D&D and stuff like that. And that was kind of while I was 18, between the kind of ages of 18 and 21, really. I got, actually, no, not 18, 16 and 21. Got really into all that kind of stuff and had my badly painted Blood Bowl team and all that kind of stuff. And then as things do, you kind of drift away from gaming and then I picked it up about I think it's probably about 10, 12 years ago now. And that was more kind of board gaming rather than the Warhammer and the D&D and stuff. And then myself and Cora used to do reviews of family games. That's how she kind of got into it. We did a lot of reviews of kids games on the Dice Tower. I don't know if you've heard of the Dice Tower, but it's quite a big board gaming YouTube channel in the board gaming world, and we used to do some board game reviews for them about family games and kids games and stuff like that. And so I was playing a lot of kids games with Cora, and then also I was playing a lot of adults kind of more kind of complex games with my friends as well. So board games have been a massive part of my life for the past 10 years or so. And then into that comes a kind of reinterest in kind of minis gaming as well. But more kind of, I can't be bothered with buying these big armies anymore. So the stuff I've been doing is more kind of Kill Team and Frostgrave and kind of skirmishy games rather than the big Warhammer armies these days. And I got back in D&D as well. So yeah, I can't remember what the question was, but that's what I've been doing in gaming for a while.
What about getting Cora into gaming then? You know, what sort of age did she start taking an interest and was able to start tentatively getting involved in some games with you?
I think we started doing videos at the age of 4, when she was 4. And I think from about 3 onwards, we were playing board games. I've got 2 other kids that now my son, who's now I said he was 16. He's massively into games now as well, but he wasn't when he was younger. My eldest daughter, she's never been into games, and I think really as a parent, you've got to realise that some kids will like games and some kids won't. Just because it's your hobby doesn't mean to say it has to be their hobby. Type thing. So the worst thing you can do when introducing a child to board games is push them and say, force them to play it. Because if you force a kid to play something they don't want to do, they're going to resent it very, very quickly. So kind of going at their pace really and things. But yeah, about 3 or 4. I mean, there's a game called Hullabaloo, which is a kind of electronic game done by the people who do Cranium, which was absolutely wonderful, and that was our first ever review, and we played that. And there's lots of kind of harbour games as well, or harbour rather, and so even some of the Orchard my games. I used to go to charity shops and buy loads of stuff for like £1 each, and then just try them out on her. And some worked, and that was fine. And some didn't, and that was fine because it was so cheap. It didn't matter if she didn't like it and things. It takes a while. The games for children of kind of age 3 and up, 3 to kind of 5 to 6, sometimes you have to bite your tongue a little bit because they're usually not great games. Some of them are good, but most of them are to play as an adult. The thing we wanted to do with CoraQuest is create a game that was as fun to play for the grown-up as it was for the child. That was one of our big aims. Cora and I wanted a game we could enjoy together rather than a game that was just designed for one of us, really.
Yeah, I think that's what strikes me. Again, I'm not like an expert or some vastly experienced gamer or anything like that, but going through the rules and I could just see this working with like me and my pal playing, with miniatures, and I could see it working, with my daughter in 1 or 2 years. So it's like, it's quite incredible to have hit that sweet spot and with just such an elegant, simplistic, but not like stupidly simple rule set. So
yeah, it's interesting because Cora was very keen on having, for example, one of the big decisions we made right early on was whether we were going to have line of sight, basically. So obviously, line of sight is kind of ranged character hit an orc if his friend's standing in the way, so he can't see him properly. And to take that out completely would make the game a lot more simple, and would suit bringing the age kind of range of the game down. But also, it would mean that it wouldn't be as tactical, and if it's not quite as tactical, then it's not quite as tense, and it would be more random, and it wouldn't be quite as satisfying. And I was actually advocating for not having line of sight, or having some kind of line of sight saying, if they're within 5 spaces, you can hit them or whatever. But Cora was like, no, because that person's in the way, you can't see past him, or that wall's in the way, you can't see past him. So it needs to. So it was quite a process to work out how difficult the rules were going to be, because they needed to be pared down, because he wanted it to be suitable for children of Cora's age at 8, but also ideally lower than that. But you kind of that was our absolute must, that Cora must enjoy playing it without it can't be too complex, basically, rules wise. But also, I think kids are often a bit better at grasping rules, especially if they're kind of intuitive rules than we give them credit for. So line of sight is, basically, if you can't draw a line from the square to another square without going through something that might get in your way, then you can't see them. And so we decided to keep that in, or she decided to keep that in. And the other thing we didn't do was at the start we had numbers. When you rolled a dice, you rolled a D6. You found out what number it was, and you found out whether you needed to. Does a 6 hit him with a toughness of 3? And we started on that kind of line. And then it became quite apparent that really we don't need that. We just need to know if it hits or not. That's the important question, not what the number is. So we just said, well, why don't we just have a big splat on the dice to show, bang, you hit, rather than have to go to a table or something like that. So that was something that we did pare down. So the difficulty. I mean, the game says 6 and up. Many people have played it with 4 and up and worked fine. It always depends on the kid, really. That's the problem. You can't say all 6-year-olds can play this and all 4-year-olds can play that and things like that. It just depends on the child and how they kind of their brain works, really. But the kind of caveat to that is it's usually we're saying that with a grown up to kind of help as well. But because it's a narrative, and because it's a story, and because it's a let's pretend of going around a dungeon and beating things up and stuff like that, the rules are a lot easier to grasp because they kind of make sense intuitively, and therefore kids are able to grasp them a lot easier.
Well, a couple of the things I wanted to ask you about, rules wise, one thing I really like the idea of is this countdown phase that kind of not encourages you, it almost forces you to go and keep exploring the dungeon, because if you don't, you're going to get more enemies on the board, aren't you? You're going to get all these spiders turning up. So how did the idea for that come about?
Well, I'd like to say it wasn't stolen. It wasn't stolen, actually. We came up with that we wanted the characters to have special abilities, and we wanted them not to have to be able to use them each round. And so we kind of stole a mechanic of a countdown track from Funkoverse, which is basically when your character does an action, you put a little token on something, and you have to wait till it comes. Put a little token on a track, and you have to wait till it comes off the bottom of the track before you can do the thing again. And then we were playing it, and we were it's one of those things where you're playing your game how you play your game. So we were running around the dungeon, beating things up, opening treasure boxes, being adventurers and things like that, and taking risks and kind of swashbuckling our way through this dungeon. Then we played it with somebody else, and they basically said, well, I'll just kill one enemy at a time. And we'll open this room, we'll wait till we've killed everybody in there, then we'll go to the next room, wait till we've killed everyone in there. And I was thinking, well, that's too easy. You can't. That's not how the game's meant to be played. But I suppose you can't. If you're gonna say to people that's not how the game's supposed to be played, you've got to give kind of carrots and sticks to stop them. So the basic carrot on stick is if you don't keep moving, then all of a sudden spiders are going to start popping up all over the dungeon and coming to attack you. Now, they won't end your game, and there are some times where you do need to stop and handle what's going on, because the thing about keeping moving is you're spawning new enemies as well. So it's just a way of keeping the game moving along and progressing and not letting it bog down in too overly cautious players, but yet giving the flexibility of being able to set the pace to some extent yourself. You'll find most dungeon crawlers have some kind of mechanic where they make it almost a race to get to the end. There's very few ones which don't have some kind of timer, because if you're allowed to just take things really, really leisurely, then you just kill one thing at a time, and it's a boring game, to be honest. So it's to add some of that tension there, really.
Another wee thing that I like the look of is the determined status. So from what I understand, if you don't hit at all, one of your characters doesn't hit at all, they become determined, and then they get a bit of a boost in the next try, don't they?
They do, yeah. If you don't hit with your rolls on one attack, then you flip your card over and you roll an extra dice next time. And I mean, I don't know about you, but when I miss, I'm sulky enough, and I'm not 6 years old. So it was all designed to help combat that kind of feeling of frustration. Because sometimes it's good to be frustrated in the game. Sometimes frustration can mean tension, but also sometimes frustration can mean flipping the table and never playing the game again, basically. So, and it's no fun to miss every single time. And so what we did was just decide, and this was the thing that I said I was quite proud of, because this came out in kind of playtesting. This was my bit of the game, the bit I did, not that my daughter can take all the credit for. Is that, yeah, so basically if you miss, then you get to roll more dice next time, and you keep on rolling those more dice until you hit, and then you go back to your normal kind of dice allocation, really. And through that kind of mitigate some of that frustration that kids can feel and adults can feel about losing. And I've heard people say, my kid was disappointed they missed because they wanted to roll more dice next time. And if you're going to start going down the kind of learning life lessons type thing, it's a good thing to know. You miss, and then you become more determined, and you try harder, and you might get it next time. You got all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, I'm pleased with the determined mechanic as well. I think it's really good. I know it's my game. I'm not meant to say stuff like that, but I do.
No, it's a nice wee consolation to a series of bad rolls, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing worse than getting whiff after whiff after whiff, and it still can happen. I mean, that was the other thing, whether it was going to be dice at all or automatic hits and things like that. But I think dice. I think it's important to have randomness in games. I think that's, as I say, we wanted it to be a tense game. We wanted it to be exciting, and it's not exciting if you know you're going to hit type thing. So dice are a really cheap and easy way of getting excitement into a game, in my opinion.
Can you talk to us a wee bit about like the setting? I mean, obviously it's a dungeon, but the setting, the characters, and the baddies that they're up against in that dungeon.
Yeah, well, it's a whimsical world it's set in. They all revolve around this character called Wizard Pebbledash, who, again, as I say, is a character that I invented while I was out walking with my kids, and they were getting bored, and so I started telling them stories about who lived in that castle over there, which was actually a British Waterways kind of electricity box or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, he's got two assistants, Kevin and Annabelle, who are both gnomes, and they get into all sorts of problems. And basically it's the heroes, the adventurers' job to save them from whatever kind of ridiculous scheme they've got caught up in. I never say the word kill in the game because it's not that I don't think it's a violent game. You're going around attacking orcs and goblins and gremlins and baddies and stuff like that, but you're always defeating them. You're never killing them. Every single time I play with a kid, they'll go, "I've killed him! Oh, I'm going to smash his head in." So I don't know. It's probably more for the adult sensibilities than it is for the kids. But still, you're defeating things. Everything's very whimsical. One of the quests is to go and rescue a cheesecake that the goblins have stolen and taken down into the thing. The other one is Kevin and Annabelle have left all the taps on in the dungeon. It started to flood, so you got to run down there and turn all the taps off. You're trying to find an alien who's gone down into the dungeon. As I say, the world exists. I've actually written a kids book. Actually, this is a world exclusive, which I'm developing and maybe releasing soon. That's set in a world as well, like a kids reading, chapter book for kind of kids of kind of 6 to 11 to read for themselves and stuff. It's just a whimsical, silly. It's meant to be funny. There's fart jokes in it. There's people getting stabbed in the bum, it's all designed to make children giggle and laugh and feel a bit superior to silly Kevin and Naomi, who's gone down into the dungeon to try and find a pet and end up getting captured by a giant snake, and the giant snake's name's Slithers McBiscuit. It's all just silliness, really. But we found the kids. I'm really pleased because it as I say, that world was my contribution as much as anything, and that was from all the kids' stories I used to tell them. When they were all little. So I'm really pleased I've managed to put that down in print, so it's safe posterity, really. Posterity, anyway, whatever. Whatever that word is.
It's a good point about the killing thing as well. I'm just thinking there. Nobody ever got killed in the Thundercats or He-Man, but there was plenty of sword waving, wasn't there? So
there was plenty of sword waving, and yeah, exactly. I don't think kids really appreciate what killing is, so I don't think it's but by just saying you've defeated them, and they rub their heads and go away and come back another day, just means that I don't know. It just means that the parent can control kind of what level of violence the game portrays, really.
Gave that orc a right good kicking.
Yeah,
nobody
exactly.
died.
No one died, so it's all right.
The obviously, like, you're using standees rather than miniatures, and that's great because we've got this really good artwork for the kids. Have you ever thought about like doing miniatures in the future potentially?
We did think about miniatures. The thing that I'm really passionate about is accessibility. That games should be accessible for people. And there's two reasons we didn't do miniatures. One, we had no experience with miniatures, we didn't have any experience with anything. But one thing I've learnt in doing all my research for this project and things like that is as soon as you start putting miniatures into your game, you up the complication level 700 times, and you're at risk of it all falling around your head. You risk of not delivering to your backers and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't feel competent to do miniatures initially, and also I love with a passion the art in the game. So I was keen to do the standees for that. But also, I don't know if you've seen, but we have an app on the web, on our website, where kids can draw their own pictures. Because one of the things about using children's pictures is that kids feel they can make their own characters for it. So they can draw their own pictures, they can put their own stats in and things like that, and then it'll print out a standee, or you'd have to glue it to some cardboard, but print out a standee and a character card for your own hero or your own monster. So by having standees, it means that kids can make their own heroes, and that's, again, goes with the punk rock aesthetic, the punk rock kind of ethos behind the game is anyone can make a board game. We made this, but you can change it if you want to. You can write your own adventures, and you can even have your own heroes. And we've had people made their entire families, including the dog, and they take them on the quests around the dungeons rather than the characters that we've provided and stuff. So by having miniatures, we would that wouldn't work really. So no, we haven't really considered miniatures, to be honest. I do like minis, but I'm happy that this game is accessible in that it's cheaper. It's a cheap game, or relatively cheap. And if it was a minis game, it would be like £100 or something like that. And we just couldn't, that would bar a lot of families from playing it, basically.
Mm-hmm. I suppose like the good news is for any listeners, like you could get this game and you could just, because you've got a great wee homebrew guide in there, which I'll ask you a wee bit about, but people could use their miniature collection, can't they? They could
yeah, certainly.
play with their miniatures.
We started playing with miniatures because it was created using the miniatures from the Lord of the Rings game from Fantasy Flight, the one with an app. I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, so we were playing with miniatures, and also we've had people make their characters, even our characters, on Hero Forge. The 3D printing minis type stuff. So one of our characters is in a wheelchair, and they've actually got a wheelchair on Hero Forge. So we've seen someone sent us a picture of them using the miniatures, with including the sword girl who's in a wheelchair, and the mini's got a wheelchair as well, which is awesome. So yeah, I mean the baddies we've got are pretty generic: gremlins, goblins, and orcs. There's some which are a bit more unusual, like a hedgicorn and a Thunder McScruggins, which is kind of like a big Yeti type creature. But you could use any miniatures really, and that's one of the things that we really do encourage is people to. What we wanted to do is get people to say, in our house we play CoraQuest like this, and just like me and Cora had the joy of creation in creating the game, we wanted to encourage other people to have the joy in creation in adapting it, or making their own characters, or making their own monsters, or making their own treasures, and all sorts of stuff. So we always said, if you don't like something, change it. This is your game, you bought it. We're not precious about that kind of stuff. We really encourage customization.
Mm-hmm. Aye, that's a good wee guide that you put in, because it just explains really easily, like you're just saying, how to create your own heroes, your own monsters, and a very easy guide to kind of what kind of characters you want to create, and here are good templates for them. So you've mentioned like a Facebook group and that, what's the community like these days? It sounds like you've got a really active community.
Yeah, really active. We've got, I think there's about 2,000-3,000 people in the Facebook group, which is amazing. People send us in adventures they've written. They send us in characters they've made and things like that. And it tends to come in spurts, but I tend to put that on the website so other people can look at it and publicise it in the. It's mainly through, as I said, I don't know if I mentioned to you before, but I'm a very old man, so it's mainly through Facebook all this goes on, rather than Instagram and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, because I don't know what I'm doing on all that kind of stuff. I'm comfortable with Facebook, so we've got a large Facebook group that we get a lot of things for. And obviously, there's some people that's been with us right from the beginning, some people whose kids' art has been in it right from the start and things. So that often, that really does kind of encourage a great community around the game, because people feel an ownership of it, really. And as they quite rightly should do, because they helped us make it. We originally did it on Kickstarter, and that also is a very community driven type thing. It's now being published through Bright Eye Games, which is fantastic. So it's got which means I don't have to worry about logistics and things like that, because I'm not really a businessman, if I'm absolutely honest. But it was worth it to get it all off the ground. But yeah, so the community is really, really solid. And there's often people posting pictures of where they've seen the game in a shop in kind of, someone posted one from Korea saying they found it in South Korea, and then someone and people posting pictures of their kids playing it, or pictures of stuff their kids have drawn for it, and things like that. It's lovely. It's really nice for me and Cora to see, because, as I say, the whole thing of it starting on our kitchen table, and then 3 years later, we're getting emails from people in Korea saying how much they enjoy playing the game. It's just absolutely flabbergasting, really.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a total whirlwind. You're talking there about, on the BBC breakfast show and stuff like that. You were in a few newspapers. So what was it like with the TV crew? Did they come to the house and that?
No, because it was in the middle of lockdown. Because we created the game in the first lockdown, and then it was all kickstarting in the third lockdown, the miserable lockdown. I don't know if you.
The long winter.
The long winter, yeah. So really, I mean, we were exceptionally lucky. It was a good news story. It was related to the lockdown. Corey's very charismatic on camera, So it was all done from where I'm sat now, to be honest. It was all done via webcam. So we're there chatting to a blank screen, and downstairs my wife and my other kids are watching us on BBC Breakfast News, because it was all live as well. It's absolutely terrifying. Cora wasn't terrified, but I was. I think in one day we did BBC Breakfast. We had an interview with The Guardian, and we were on two local news channels as well. It was incredible. Very privileged. Very privileged indeed. I can't, it's all luck and good timing, and it wasn't deliberate good timing. It was just the right place and the right time, really. But it got us a wider audience, certainly, and also it started getting us talked about within the board gaming world, because one thing, as you know, it's like with Henry Cavill, isn't it? One thing that us geeks love is when our hobby's in the mainstream news, and you go, oh, look at this, they're talking about us in here, or something. Talking about us on Graham Norton and all that kind of stuff, and then that gets shared around everywhere. And so that was what was happening on the Facebook groups for that kind of week or two. So that was really helpful to our Kickstarter, to be honest, not to be too cynical about it. But yeah, but Cora just took it in a stride, because it was just her talking to a webcam, which she's used to doing, whereas me, I was sweating. Especially I was meant to be at work on one of the days. I was meant to start. The thing was that I think it was we were on at like 8:15 in the morning, and I start work at 8. But I worked from home at that point, and I thought, can I get away with being on breakfast TV while I'm meant to be at working? I thought, oh, go on, I'll have a go, and I'm sure my manager won't mind. And it was all right, but it was just kind of, it was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind.
What's it been like for Cora with like her pals and, going to school and that? Has she got a lot of positive feedback about it?
Yeah, she's got friends who play it. My niece and nephew continue to refuse to believe that we did it. That's a problem. That's probably being the jokey uncle who lies to them all the time, and tells them, I don't know, tells them a load of rubbish. Is that when you actually do tell them something? No, you didn't. You lie, Uncle Dan. You didn't make that. I did. It's my name. But certainly. Her friends all played it. She's taken it to school. She gave a copy to the school as well. She just left the primary school that she was in. So that was nice. She got a leaving card from them with a picture of her and Cora, the box for CoraQuest on it. She's very proud of it. She's approaching teenage years. So sometimes she pretends not to be proud of it. But we go to cons now and again. We went to the UK Games Expo recently, and we were down on the booth there watching people play it, and she signed a few box copies, which made her very pleased and all that kind of stuff. So she's really proud of it, really, and she should be, because, as I say, it really most of it came from her. So she should be proud of it. It's going to be something that's going to follow her, hopefully. I'm hoping kind of when she's 80 years old, she'll be bringing the copy down from the shelf to play with her great grandkids and say, when I made this when I was a little girl and stuff like that. That's kind of my dream. But yeah, it's something she's proud of. Although in a kind of proto teenage way, she's starting to kind of tell me, "Oh, shut up." We went to Dublin the other day, and we had a look in the shop there because we to see they were stocking CoraQuest, and I kept saying, "I wonder if they've got CoraQuest in this shop." And she, "Shut up, Dad! I've heard that's very good. I've heard the design of that are very good looking." But yeah, they didn't have it in Dublin, but they had it in Canterbury where we went the other day. So that was quite exciting for her. But yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, what an achievement to have under your belt at that age. An achievement that most of us will never have at all. So it's brilliant. And I hear that, or I don't hear, I know that there are expansions, or at least an expansion available. Is that right?
No, it's not available yet. It's currently sitting in a warehouse in China, waiting for the ships to pick it up. We kickstarted. We did a second Kickstarter for an expansion this time last year, basically, and it's all been designed and stuff. And this one introduces campaign rules for people who do want to play a campaign, and also ways of leveling up characters and things like that, which people have been asking for, as well as it's one of those more of everything things. There's more dungeon, there's more heroes, there's more enemies, there's more everything basically, and campaign rules. And that was a lot of fun to do, actually. Yeah, so that's going to be available hopefully at the end of this year. Should be fulfilling to backers end of October is the hope, if we can get someone to pick it up from the factory. But anyway, that's a different thing. I'm not, as I say, I'm not good at this kind of stuff. Not that it's not going to happen, but just waiting for people to actually answer emails and do stuff is very frustrating.
Where's the best place for the listener to keep up with developments and news and things like that, new releases?
Well, if they go onto Facebook, the CoraQuest, if you search for CoraQuest on Facebook, you should be able to find the CoraQuest Facebook group. That's definitely the best place to look. We also post a kind of Board Game Geek. I don't know if you're aware of that website. That's a big kind of database of board games, and we'll post news there as well. But Facebook is really where it's at. I think if you go to now brighteyegames.com. They have a newsletter that you can sign up to if you're not a Facebook person, and they'll send you any kind of information about it, that kind of stuff. The base game's available in the shops now, and the expansion should be Christmas time-ish.
Do you and Cora do you ever just have a game at it still, or have you played it so much that you just choose another game when you get together?
We do play it now and again. I'm very careful that I need it to be a positive thing, which is why I kept her out of a lot of the play testing, if you see what I mean. Like with this expansion we did, we created the kind of stories together, and then I went away and play tested and brought them back when they had major changes and checked with her. So she must have play tested each kind of quest 3 or 4 times maybe, because I did it like 20 times, 50 times, I don't know, a quest, and you know, until I never wanted to see a blooming dungeon again, to be honest. I mean, I think that's the curse of the board game designer, I suspect, is that you grow to be absolutely sick of your own game because you need to make sure it's right. But no, we do kind of crack it out. She really likes, we rarely play just us two anymore. What she really likes is when her friends come over and we can play it together, and she can see the enjoyment in other people, and that gives her real pride. So the last time we played it was with my niece and nephew, who, as I say, refused to believe that we could ever create something like that. But she very much enjoyed playing with them, yeah.
Great stuff. And we know that the expansion's on its way. What does the future hold? You know, if you've thought about it, have you thought about trying another game at some point in the future, doing something else?
Yeah, I'm most of the way through a design of another game without Cora. She's as far as she's concerned, she's done now. So she's not really that interested in doing any more game design at this point in time. And one of the things I've learned as a parent, making mistakes as we all do, is not to push a child into something she's not enthusiastic about, because unless obviously it's school or something like that, but you know what I mean? Because it will just create resentment, really. So the last thing I want to do is resent that process and the experience we shared together. So I'm not pushing her to make any more games and things. We have tinkered with a few more designs. We looked at there's no kids games with spaceships in them, and I've got no idea why. Like where you're flying around going pew 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 pew. There's none. Now that's wrong in my opinion, but still. So we did tinker with that, but it kind of fizzled out a little bit. I've co-designed a game with a chap called Mike Delisio, who's one of the Dice Tower people, and who I do a podcast with, and he and I have that's based on pure nostalgia. That's all about making a mixtape for someone you've got a crush on and trying to make the best mixtape for them, so you can woo them. But that's a grown-ups game, as I say. It's a simple game. It's not aimed at kids. But next for CoraQuest, I don't know really. I mean, the expansion's coming out. We haven't got any plans for another one. I suppose I could be persuaded into it by Mark if this one does really, really well. As I say, I've been tinkering around with writing a bit of a kids book set in that world. So that's likely to come out, even if it's only self-published at some point. But yeah, I fell into CoraQuest, and so that's how I do a lot of things in my life. I just fall into doing them, and it might continue. It might not. I think there's enough there now. There's enough body of work there now, because we've published a lot of free adventures for it as well. So there's enough body of work now that I'm proud of it as its own thing. I don't think it's unfinished, but who knows? I don't want to say I'm never going to do anything again, because you don't know, do you?
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please do share it with someone else you think might enjoy it too. And be sure to check out our Discord community of like-minded hobbyists, which you could find at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. It'd be great to see you in there.